Good evening, and welcome to tonight's session of our book review, where it is May 2025, and it is also Africa Day, and it is the day where we come together and say, Africa has had her journey. Now Africa needs a new hope. Africa needs to move forward. And most importantly, Africa needs us. My name is Moralo Nematayeni, and I am so excited to be part of today's session because it's been long overdue that we don't take time to come together to reflect and also remember what the world looks like going forward, more especially our world. Most of the time when we speak about Africa, it is the African map that comes to mind. Some of us, we wear that as jewelry without asking ourselves, what is it that we are contributing to our country? What it is that we are contributing to our continent? So this month's book was How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. And in this book, that is the book that speaks about political economy. It speaks about history, post-colonial studies. And for me personally, it was one of those books that I was like, yo, Modimo, is this a history session? But as I continued listening to the book, I could relate to some of the things that I've heard as part of history in terms of what was done to Africa and her children. And it was easier to then ask myself, I am here today because of the experiences that Africa had, and what is my contribution going forward? And for those that haven't read the book, so this book is a powerful and well-researched analysis of how colonialism and European intervention systematically exploited Africa and stunned its economic, political, and social development. Rodney argues that Africa was not underdeveloped by accident or by internal weaknesses, but rather through deliberate policies and actions by European colonial powers. And maybe before we go any further, I would like to put this disclaimer to say, as part of today's book review session, ours is to raise awareness. We are not speaking on behalf of the country, of the government, or any entity, but we're speaking about how we have experienced the book and also highlighting on our role going forward as African women and finding ourselves where we are today. So the key themes that we've noted from this book, the first one was around the myth on African underdevelopment, where Rodney challenges the idea that Africa was primitive before colonization. He shows that many African societies were thriving with their own economic systems, social structures, and trade network. And secondly, he touches on the role of slavery, where he examines how the transatlantic slave trade robbed Africa of its human resources and destabilized societies, benefiting Europe's economies while weakening African development. The third one, he speaks about colonialism as exploitation. He details how colonialism enriched Europe by extracting Africa's natural resources, using African labor, and turning the continent into a market for European goods, all with no intention of building Africa's infrastructures or institutions. Number four, the dual economy. He explains how colonialism created a dual economy, one that serves European interests, referring to mining, export crops, trade routes, and another that ignored local Africans' needs and development. And lastly, he speaks about how underdevelopment is not a lack of development. He makes it clear that underdevelopment is not the absence of development, but rather the result of a system that one regime, which is Europe, develops at the expense of another, which is Africa. And you might be asking yourself why it matters today. Rodney's book remains relevant for understanding how contemporary inequality, the root of economic injustice, and global power dynamics. For us as African women, it also sheds light on how colonialization affected gender roles, land ownership, and social power structures that still influences our lives today. So, as we have this engagement today, or this discussion about this book, I want you to think about how you see the legacy of colonialism in your community today. What role can the work that you do play in reversing underdevelopment? And how do we empower African women in a system historically designed to exclude them? So, how Europe underdeveloped Africa is not just a history lesson, it's a call for us to reclaim our agency, to understand the root cause of inequality, and build a future based on justice, knowledge, and empowerment. So, as we start today, I don't want us to just come and say, yes, we've had a book review session, we tick, but I want us to reflect, to reconnect, and also reimagine our place in the future of Africa. So, this book is a reminder that Africa's underdevelopment was not a natural occurrence. It was a system designed to extract, exclude, and also silence. But here we are today, educated, powerful, and awake. We are choosing to rewrite this narrative through our actions, our voices, and also our dreams as women. And as African women, we know the pain of this inequality. But with us, we also carry the resilience of generations, the wisdom of our foremothers, and the power to rebuild, to reshape, and also to reignite Africa's future. I believe that there is power in each and every one of you here today. And sometimes you might be asking ourselves, Oti, yes, we've read the book. It is about the past, but you have to ask yourself a question. Now what? So that you can have this answer that will allow you to prioritize yourself as a woman. In the past weekend, in the sessions that I've had, the discussion, I was always stressing the importance of prioritizing yourself as a woman. Even when you are here in this space, this review session, this networking engagement that we're about to tap into now, always, always, and always prioritize yourself. Prioritize your health, your education, your financial freedom, and also your voice, and claim the space in every sphere of African life. You might be in business, in politics, in education, maybe even the arts, because I know we've got people that are saying, I've even left my employment to focus on writing on a full-time basis. Or this is what I do, where other people will look at it and saying, it is not much. You just sit at home and raise children. But I want us to say, this is my contribution. So let's take a moment to introduce ourselves, not just with our names, but also our contribution. If you're running a business, you can touch on that. If you're raising children, you can touch on that. If you're educating others, irrespective of which area of life you choose to educate, you can touch on that. If you're writing, you can share about your writing. If you're mentoring, you can touch on that because sometimes we mentor in formal structure and also in informal structures. And then we fail to recognize that until one day comes up and say, Muraro, because of what you did when I was in my first year of studies, here I am, I'm graduating. Then you remember that, oh, I actually did something, I contributed. So let's think of those small spaces where we thought it was not much. Kanti, at the end of the day, it's something that changed somebody's life. Some of you are healing. It can be in the traditional space, it can be in the energy healing space, it can be formally as medical practitioner, different areas. Some of you are in farming, some of you are still aspiring to get into farming, or you're simply holding your community together. Just remember that you are part of Africa's development story. Where you are today, you are contributing something, and we want to see that something. We want to hear about that something today. So, good evening once again, ladies. I want us to take this moment and make it about us. At times, we never get moments where it is all about us and the future that we want. Um, I see Lena is, yeah, she won't allow me to say the future that we want and the future that we deserve. So, ladies, welcome once again. Let's see by the show of hands who would like to introduce themselves, or if there is someone that would like to also share as they introduce themselves how they've also experienced the book. I know some of you haven't read the book, but I said, come here, let us engage, let us introduce ourselves, let us share about what we are doing in our different spaces. Is there anyone who's ready? Maybe raise your hand or unmute, and then let's do this. Renaya must speak today because she's the one that got us where we are today with this book.
Hi, Mrado. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Uh, I'm I'm Rena. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I'm Renae, and my contribution is always to I like challenging policies in education, and yeah, I do this a lot through the work I do of working in education management systems and data analysis. So yeah, I believe, and I maybe that's why also this book is very personal to me. Even though I've read it like in different ways, like the articles and the summaries and the book itself. But I find that I I'm very drawn um to systems and processes that empower people, and therefore I'm also very against injustices. And I'm a believer that governments can empower people and governments can make the lives of people better. So that's my contribution, challenging what is existing in society and always reaffirming that we can have policies that are not just put in place, but they're implemented and they're monitored and evaluated. So yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renaya, and for throwing us into the deep end. I remember when I was listening, and then when they were like, yeah, Amazulu, South Africa, Bantu, I was just like, oh my word, they also speak about us. Because sometimes when you hear Africa, you think, yeah, Nigeria, Ghana, up there, it's got nothing to do with us. So thank you for the book. Though at times I was listening and I'm like, oh my word, what is all these words? Sometimes you hear words here and there and you're like, what does it mean? And you think that it does not affect you. Like how now when you're speaking about policies, I was one of the people that when you speak about policies, I'm like, what? It's for other people. Like it does not concern me. But now, even when I'm doing my work, what we are going to approve these policies, I read that and I make it make sense. And when it does not make sense, I ask. And then sometimes when there is other policies in other spaces, let's say there was research done and I have to sit, but there's this policy about this. Then I go and find that document and then I read it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is why this is like this. And sometimes it's not as complicated as we make it to be. And sometimes we find us saying, yeah, the government has policies, but it does not implement those policies. And then you ask yourself, which policy in particular are you referring to? And we found wanting. So maybe even in this space, just simplifying what policies are. And maybe at times when you find one that you like, okay, this will not take us to different spaces, then you just throw it there and you're like, guys, ladies, here's one policy that you can read, and then let's find time to just make it make sense so that we don't feel as excluded from this economy. As I'm talking, I'm just waiting to see who else will be coming next. You're most welcome to unmute. Woman Famadi, you can unmute.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I am Mariam Famadi, the marriage coach, the author, the herbalist. I enjoy sharing information. I like empowering myself. I am multi-talented. I am unique, and my uniqueness is unique. I wrote 7 books. I will just send them to the group. I like them a lot because they are good. I am still dreaming of writing more books. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, we want to see those books and information in terms of how we can make purchases being shared on the group. I particularly loved your introduction because, as you were saying, it was like positive things about yourself. And at times, as women, we want to put ourselves in the back seat or we want to give credit to other people, but just the positiveness on that introduction. Thank you so much for being part of this community. Ladies, let's see, show of hands, unmute, writing on the chats if you're ready. This silence, ne? It's something that I think we need to address if we want to move forward as African women, because it's not just in this book review session, it's in different spaces and places that we find ourselves in. I understand that maybe at times we still busy with something. Someone just noted she's still on duty. We appreciate you noting that on the chat. But sometimes when you ask people outside of this space, I'll be touching on this, and then I just want to see with the show of hands in terms of who will be going next. But I think this is something that we need to discuss in this space because when women are given the platform, they remain silent. And it's one of the most heartbreaking realities that we witness not just in this book club, but also in our communities and also in spaces where we must speak. When we speak about empowering ourselves and growing Africa, it is not just about what we do in other spaces. It's all about what we do in all the spaces that we find ourselves in. And we're not silent because we don't know what to say or we don't have anything to say. Sometimes, yeah, it's one of those things that I don't know what needs to be done to us because at times we say, yeah, emotional conditioning and don't, and sometimes we're like, yeah, we are scared people are going to judge us or the spaces. Sometimes we question our values. So I just want us to take up the space. Renae, you can come through.
Yeah, Muraro, I think I just got very triggered by your statement because Angela Davis, the one who did the foreword for this book, she actually wrote something about how um Walter Rodney spoke about something about how colonization did this thing where it made women sort of appear as though they didn't have a role in society, and basically kind of put women in this whole situation of domestication and to say because she speaks about that he didn't ignore gender issues, right? If anything, there's a quote that he says that she writes a quote that under colonialism, African women's social, religious, constitutional, and political privileges and rights disappeared while the economic exploitation continued and was often intensified, right? And the fact that basically women's work was seen more as yeah, colonialism didn't rate women. You know what I'm saying? It didn't see women as having a voice. So it's not an autumn. And I mean, I like observing, particularly women. So put me in any space. I'm always drawn to analyze women, like what you're saying, our postures, our talking, if you go into any spaces, Mraro, you know that men always want to verbalize, even in times when they are speaking mediocrity. Guys, men have this boldness, of just speaking. Women always have to we need to always first like swift out and say, okay, does it make sense for me to say it? It's not even second guessing ourselves. And this thing, if we just analyze it on a surface level and don't try to understand, particularly what colonization did to women, we might take it lightly. Women, even in the workspace, we are the first ones that if roles are being made available, we will check whether we are qualifying for these things. And I mean, this book also talks about those things. And for me, what is important, Mraro, is us realizing the conditioning that happens to women in our society and how we are raised. And the fact that we are also conditioned like, okay, have posture, don't speak too much. I mean, Chimamanda is one of those people that speaks very strongly about this. How as women we need to be put together because also we are raised and conditioned to be fitting a certain sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? I've lost that word. But we have to look presentable, appeasing. We have to look in a certain way because remember, for the longest time as women, we've been sort of groomed and raised for the society roles, particularly of being wives and being mothers. So you have to be palatable, you have to be all these things. Those who are allowed, they appear as rebels. Oh, who's going to marry you and all of that. And these things are things that they sound so cliche, but when you go into society, those little things really come to play. Women wait for me to say, Busisiwe, please talk. Maria, please talk. You know what I'm saying? And we need to understand that there's so much work that colonization has done to us. And recently I read something also in relation to this book that people that are oppressed, their trauma actually does not end with them. They did this experiment, I think, in Germany, and someone was also relating now to, Gaza, in Palestine, that the trauma that the children, basically the mothers and fathers in Gaza, Palestinians are actually suffering, during this genocide, is going to actually be passed down to their children and their children's children. Because this test was done in Germany, with the people that went through the Nazi genocide or the Nazi war, that their children and their children experience those same things. So you can see that even in our community, particularly as Black people, women were raised to be all put and in a certain way. Speak when you are afforded an opportunity and all of that. So Mara, I was just saying, that's why I
just expected to be visible in certain spaces. So as of last year, I ventured into farming, and a lot of people will look at me and think you are a young girl, you are supposed to be preparing to get married and all that, but here you are getting into farming. No men want to marry you then because you have the property, livestock, and everything. But then I'm coming from an environment background where I've seen my mother owning livestock. I've seen my mother, being the only women in spaces where or in rooms where men usually sit. So then I was empowered then to say I need to carry on the baton and empower as many other women as I can. And getting back, I haven't read the book. Somebody shared with me a soft copy, I think probably 2022, somewhere there. I need to go back to my stuff and look for it. But my contribution will be looking at the fact that Europe, that this was way in the past. And if I'm not wrong, I think South Africa was the last African country to gain independence in 1994. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we can't, yes, that what happened in the past happened, but I think we cannot always go back and say the Europeans did this to us, the European did all that to us. I feel like nowadays you find the people who are colonizing ourselves, we are actually the ones that are colonizing our fellow Africans. And it's high time that we change that narrative. That's why you look at earlier when Mulalo Kotonshi said, I prefer to say the Africa that we need or the Africa that we deserve and not necessarily the Africa that we want. So I feel like with spaces such as this one, we liberate ourselves. You go to your community, you liberate one or two people. They go back to their spaces, they liberate one or two people. That way, in the end, we are going to liberate ourselves collectively, and we cannot always just refer to Europeans this, Europeans that. I think it's high time that we change that narrative. In a nutshell, that is my contribution. Thank you so much. I'll be participating mainly from the chat since I said I was on duty, but I appreciate spaces such as this one. This is why I keep coming back. Thank you so much. I look forward to a great evening.
Thank you so much, Lena. That was a good introduction. Busisi, we're over to you. Welcome back, Mraro.
Okay, thank you. I'll read Teko's post and then I'll come to mine because she's got network problems. My name is Teko. I love anything that has to do with learning as it opens horizons and opportunities beyond our imagination. I'm in media and business, and my previous corporate experience led me to this path I've taken. Hunger for reading, hunger for culture, hunger for collaboration of different minds, hunger for not leaving the children that we are raising behind, but empowering them with all our might. I hope I've got everything here, Tsako. Okay, back to me. I'm Busisi Wengwenya. I'm an author of 4 short story books, which are available on Amazon and from me as well. And I've written a mini memoir that's called I Am Me, a PK's Life. The book looks at my life as a pastor's child from where we were, from 1976 or 77 up until the day he retired, and it's our next read. And then also I've written a poetry collection which is available on Amazon only for now as an ebook. I read the book, but I did not finish it because some aspects of it, I felt it felt like a hearsay. In fact, I think that some of the things I felt like they were written as a hearsay. But as Lina was saying, that the question now is that what are we going to do differently? And because when I was reading the book, one thing that I remembered is a discussion we had with somebody to say, what role did Africans play in our brothers and sisters' slavery? What role did Africans play during apartheid? Because you can't tell us that a group of Portuguese who came in just this ship could have just come and colonized a whole continent. So even now, what role are we playing to take ourselves backwards instead of forward? So when we read books like this, we need to, they say when you read history, it's to learn and unlearn the mistakes that were made by others. And at times I feel like as Africans, we just keep repeating the same narrative. And it's true that we cannot keep blaming what happened. The question is moving forward, what are we doing? When you look at women, even from the days of Pharaoh, we had very strong women, women were warriors, women who led armies, women who led nations. When we read about the Dahomeis, the way they are portrayed in this book, they are portrayed as just this almost uncivilized people who were just out there to fight and were violent. But when you read other history books, African books written by Africans, that nation was more advanced than most nations, and the women there, yes, they were warriors, they were in the army, but also they were pro-education, they were pro-civilization. So at times when people write, especially when it's hearsay, some of the things is that they portray Africans as barbarians, people who didn't know much better. And I think we need to find books that affirm us as Africans to say, in the past, we're more civilized than any other nation. And we are still stronger than any other nation, but we have allowed the colonized mind to take us back, to make us feel like we're inferior, that we need a Trump to come and save us. If Trump says, I'm closing all the NGOs and switching off the money, it's like, oh God, how are we going to survive? Whereas we had the tools to do all these things prior. Our ancestors, they respected earth. They knew there were places you could not just go and build. They knew they could tell weather patterns just by studying the soil and looking at the wind and the way it changed. So it's not like we don't have this inherent in us. The question is, how are we going to unshackle our minds to take us forward? So when we get opportunities, as Lena said, to say where you are, what are you doing to make sure that you are making a positive change to the young minds that are coming up? What interventions are we putting in place to make sure that we don't repeat the history that was done? Because we can talk and talk about it, but what are we doing moving forward? As Ubusi, what I do is I tell stories, and I say my stories, they've got an entertainment element to it, but the main issue is that at the end of the day, you must have taken one or two lessons from them, and then it's up to you what you do with them. That's my introduction. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Sis Busi. That was very good and informative. Ntanganedzeni, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute? Ntanganedzeni, can you hear us? Okay, I'll move to Tlangelani. Can you hear us?
Oh, somebody said they can't talk right now. I think it's just on the chat. Ntanganezani, she said she can't talk right now. So you were talking about policies as well. You know, at times, yes, at times people say we don't read policies, or the policies are good, but there is no implementation. At times we have to look at whether there is a will to actually, because a person can write a policy just to shut you up, but is there a will to actually implement what is written there and implement it in the correct way? I will talk about Triple B because I understand it very well. That policy was a bandage policy. It's if it had been written the way it was supposed to be written, it would look differently. But even the bandage policy, the implementation has been compromised because there are people who are against it. And I'm not talking just about white people, I'm talking about our own people. There are people who presumably have benefited, but not really. But because they have gained a bit out of it, they would not want others to benefit. So they will do anything and everything they can to make sure that the policy doesn't work the way it was intended. So at times we have to look at ourselves as Black people to say, who are we, the gatekeepers, the kind of people who make sure that we don't progress? When you talk about beneficiation, the ANC, and I'm talking the DTI more than anybody else, when you look at the strategy of the DTI for the past 20 years, it talks about beneficiation. Nobody has ever taken them to task to say every year you talk about we are going to benefit, you are to do beneficiation. What have you done? So at times people talk the talk, but they don't walk it. So we need to also take, because the government is a government for the people, by the people. What are we doing to make sure that when people say we are going to do 1, 2, 3, we make them accountable? That's another thing.
Thank you so much, Busi, and also touching on the policy and the spaces that we know you've got an expertise in and used to work in. And I just wanted to check, did all those that are able to unmute and introduce themselves and share their contribution? Or do we still have someone that is available to chat? They can just unmute before we go to the next part. Okay. I'm seeing conversations on the chat. Oh, Mbali, you're most welcome to unmute.
Good evening, ladies. Thank you so much for this platform. Now, in my mind, it's more like it's as you are talking about the colonization. So I'm thinking that looking at it as like it's a platform to decolonize our minds, you know. I am Mbali Zondo. I am a founder of the Well Electrical Trading. So providing the electrical services. So what I'm so passionate about is to empower other young women to come into the space of this male-dominated industry, which I would say that don't only focus on the females only, you know. I do empower even other young guys, you know, so making a difference where for them when they get a skill to like to build something out of it, because apart from someone being employed, they can like start their own businesses going forward. So yeah, I will not say much. That is my contribution in my community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did anyone ever introduce themselves and talk about their contribution as a mother in their own house? Or a knees lap? Okay.
Today I will skip that part.
Yeah, my contribution is also being a cool aunt. I contribute being a cool aunt to my nephews and nieces, Mraro.
Thank you very much. I just raised that to bring it home because at times we want to talk about these things that we are doing when we are busy changing the world out there, and then we forget the role that we play with the most immediate people that we stay with. And just being able to tell someone who's hey, when, humble your guess, go and shower. Because sometimes those people are at a point where they need that leadership to remind them that they need to do the things that benefit them. Because if someone cannot see that even showering or reading a book benefits them, then you still have a long way to go. So thank you so much, ladies, for the introductions that we saw come through. So I just wanted us to flip this question or this discussion because we said this is what we do. So now I want us to use our voices to say this is what we need because at times we are in positions where we are able to share about how we assist other people or how there is a need there, but we don't talk about this is me. Oh my. I watch too many movies, so the photo in the room that I'm in is about to fall. Um, so I need your prayers so that the photo does not fall in this hotel. But introduce yourself. What is it that you need that you can also get from this collective that we are a part of? Anyone that would like to come in?
Okay, for me, it's not so much a need, right? What I've seen is that you share quite a lot of opportunities. And at times I'll look at it and like I need to do something about this, and then if I don't do it immediately, I forget about it. You introduced us to Africans Rising. I went and did it almost the same time you posted that, and through that introduction, one of the projects, in fact, was three activities that I identified, because this month is mental health month. So as part of health and wellness in our church, because that's what I do, I had to put together something. And part of climate justice as well, that's something I do something about. So when I wrote to them, I said, I'll be doing an event today at church focusing on climate justice and mental health awareness. And then because it's Africa Day, I also asked a gentleman at church to talk about what it means to be an African. So I just wanted to say that for me, these are the things I'm doing. If I need assistance, it's more about raising awareness. When I post something, at times it's just to ask people to say, can you also share it with your groups and not anything else. So maybe that's what I need. Thank you.
Thank you. Can someone go next?
Today, I'm not sure whether it's the book or we're just tired, but yeah, it's not the normal sessions, or maybe the topic is hard itself. I don't know, but yeah, we need to unshackle, as I said earlier, and decolonize and start implementing, because no one is coming to save us but ourselves. That's all I can say.
Someone that can go next. I'm just trying to fix this photo thing.
Sorry, Mara, I got disconnected. What was the question?
She wanted to know whether we need any form of assistance. What are we doing, and do we need any assistance?
Yes. So personally, I'm interested in, I think I've been very much exposed to the South African education system, context, conferences, seminars, indaba. But I'm now interested more in um being exposed to different education engagements on the continent, because I have such an interest of understanding how other countries are implementing their education systems. A friend of mine recently from Kenya was just sharing like the differences that she experienced whilst living in South Africa. She came to South Africa for university, but she schooled her primary and secondary in Kenya. So those differences are just for her like massively. So she was just explaining sort of like how they go about in their education system. But she was more like what's this? She was more schooled in the sort of Catholic schools. I'm sure like most of us in South Africa also know those models that were there back then, which were mostly boarding schools. So I'm interested in understanding how different countries are doing their education systems. And I know that when you read different reports, you also see context where South Africa is rated amongst the countries where we spend a lot of money on education, as opposed to other African countries. And I'm also interested always to experience things like visually, either visiting, or seeing, as opposed to like reading reports. I find sometimes reports and policies, yes, we read them, they acquaint us, but I don't think nothing will ever take the experience of seeing, how certain things are done, particularly for me when it comes to education. So I'm absolutely open and keen for people to share opportunities and events that are happening about education. Funny enough, I've seen more like in the West, conferences about early childhood development and learning. In now the buzzwords are integration of AI and ICT, which is also another element. This book also like influenced me about the education and so forth. So I'm interested in those particular things, Mraro. So if you do come across those, please do share, or anyone on the group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm back. Lina, over to you.
Okay, all right. The question of education and the sister, sorry, I didn't get her name, so I hope it's okay if I just address her sister. Her asking or her interest into seeing how the education systems are in the other countries. Namibia and South Africa are not that much. There isn't that much difference when it comes to our education system and yours. But one aspect that I noticed that is kind of picking up momentum in Namibia is the introduction of AI. You see kids. This is only happening in some schools, and most of it is mainly individuals or organizations, mainly CSOs, driven, where they go in and they introduce kids to robotics and all those other things. But I would like to take us back to an aspect around education that hardly gets looked at is the issue of promoting education outside the classroom. Because we believe, yes, you go to school, you sit, you learn about physics, and then you go home. But what we don't notice is the fact that education outside the classroom that is equally and if not much more important than what the kids are learning in school. So we can talk about quality. Yes, quality is bad and all that, but it also, I think we also need to look at what are we doing about the poor quality of education. Because sometimes you find the child cannot read, and instead of somebody coming in, stepping in, so they provide a solution, they are just pointing fingers at teachers. These teachers are not what, these teachers are what, the government is this, the government is that. But then there's always a question of, but what are you doing about it? So you identify a problem, so then what is your solution? So then you meet the other guys halfway. Because I noticed these are people that are coming from our houses. The people that we address as these teachers or this government is made up of people that are coming from our environment. So I feel like our community. So I feel like shouldn't we come together as a community or as stakeholders and look at it and see maybe let's say I'll give you an example. When I was in school, I had geography, and you are learning about meandering and all these other things. You've never seen a mountain, so then you can have an aspect to say, also this is how it breaks down, and in a way it forms, and then all those other things. But I feel like if I had somebody that then took me on, be it a tour or anything, just to see, you look at this is what, this is that, or just all these other things. So I feel like it's high time we empower community education, similar to how we need to empower classroom education. I'll give you an example. I don't just talk about things, I actually go out there and do them. Last year, I initiated an initiative of the contributing or adding value to education by introducing outside the classroom initiatives. I took girls to our state house here in Bentum just for a school trip. I actually just do things that are within my means. So then I thought, we have a state house that is supposed to be our house, but then there are people out there who've never been there. They don't know, they have no idea what happens diplomatically and all that. So then I decided, let me look for OVC, the orphan and vulnerable children from 4 primary schools. So then I took them there for a trip. And just on Friday, I did the same thing again with the boy children. This time I took them to Parliament, so we learn about our legislative and all that. And then I took them to we have what is called an Independence Memorial Museum in Namibia, and we with Genocide Day coming up. So then I just thought, I cannot just be talking about things based, that I also step in and show that I'm not just talking, I'm also contributing. And I hope to see that everyone, if not all of us, or majority of us, are contributing to education outside the classroom, just as we need to have quality of education in the classroom. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for that, Linda. Yes, we are like part of Tembisa South Library. We meet every second Thursday, where we do book readings, book reviews, debate, and at times we do what you call build a word, and you will be doing like spelling bee and all that. So we encourage reading, but also in our church we started a reading club for the kids. Because it's nice when you start them young and you get them reading and understand and reading for understanding. So we in our little corners, we really have to do as our bit to contribute to whatever challenges that we faced, instead of just talking about them.
Yeah, I think also maybe to just Lina, yes, I've been to Namibia twice, and I've studied a bit of how similar your guys' education system is to ours in South Africa. And also because of the influence of how well Namibia was colonized by South Africa. Um, and I think I also just noticed on the data management systems, friends of mine did take me through that you guys don't really have what we have. So how in South Africa we have a schools management system that actually tells the government how many kids are there and how many are passing, how many are failing, and how many resources are needed or resources are distributed, infrastructure in detail, because that is like a database that each school has. So when I engaged with two of my friends, Dominga and Sarah, they indicated that they didn't really have something to that particular level, right? And the reason why I'm very interested in practically seeing education in practice in African continents, I think if we can all agree in this call, that a lot of the reports that we read, they paint a different picture about African children and learning. And even the fact that when you read about South Africa, people will jump and speak about the Pearls report, the one that says, 80% of grade four learners in South Africa can't read for meaning. And I mean, yes, that those statements come out, but I feel like we don't contextualize, we don't realize that in that particular report, learners who do well are learners who are English is their home language, most of them, and learners who are whose home language is Afrikaans. Those learners do well because they are speaking the same language that they get assessed on. Yes, there's many debates, and I know, like at work, even people are saying no, but we didn't speak English at home, but we still did well in English, back then, even during the Bantu education system. But I believe that the conversation has to be on a deeper level and understanding. And again, contextual to this book. The reason why I will always refer to this book is because this book for me provided a context of us understanding that the things that we do and we say they are normal, they've been normalized because our colonizers did normalize them for us. Yes, we can't blame apartheid and whatever. I'm also that person of let's forward thinking, but I'm saying we need to understand that systems that colonized us, they've influenced what we do and how we are. And we are doing a lot of positive things. We are doing a lot of contribute. But I'm saying majority of us as a people, our way of thinking has not changed because we've not taken an effort to really rehabilitate us as a people, right? So the point that I want to bring is that when we look at education systems in African continents, it's also for us to understand that children in Black families are not learning in the languages that they speak at home. And that provides a problem because in South Africa, for example, a child is learning in their mother tongue from the first grade until like the third grade. Then in the fourth grade, we transition to a whole new language, which is English for most of these learners. So a lot of these children are still grappling, with their own mother tongue, but now you bring a foreign language, right? So we don't speak about that. We don't speak about the fact that the English language is a language that is very difficult for children. And it's a language that children have to comprehend. They have to adapt and so forth. And we again are playing into this thing where we have sort of like said the language of our colonizer measures our intelligence. And that's also an argument that I'm always pushing back, and this book is one that for me is important because it makes us realize that why can't I have a degree and that degree I studied in Chivenda as a Chivenda speaking person? Why have we as former colonies of Britain, for example, still measuring our intelligence with English because we believe English is the language of business, of currency, of all of that. You know what I'm saying? And that also hasn't translated when we write books. I know I express myself in Chivenda better, but if I write a book in Chivenda, I probably would make more sales than if I wrote it in English. And the same thing goes for the famous authors that we know across the world. But I'm saying that there's a whole different situation that we must look at when we speak about education, which is what Lina's also talking about. The education that children learn outside, right? Okay, now let's bring in AI. And AI is like, yo, guys, it's going to blow us like as developing countries out of this world. Because right now, for example, schools are struggling with AI because now kids you just give them an assignment to write about themselves. They just go and sit with ChatGPT and they say, hi, ChatGPT, write an essay for me about myself. Then ChatGPT writes for them, they go and submit at school. right? So there's just so many yes, Mraro, that's the reality. And the funny part is the children know the AI, but the teachers are technophobic, some of them, right? So some teachers are not picking up these things because they don't want to learn AI, you know. And a few days ago, last week, I was in an Indaba, education Indaba, and they were discussing that how are we going to like future proof slash prepare the teachers of tomorrow today, you know? Because the teachers that we have right now, they are so resilient on sticking to the old methods, while the kids are like, we want AI, we want a whiteboards, you know what I'm saying? So this is also just like a whole different conversations that we should be having, and we should be looking at how do we bridge the gap also between children who are in the deep rural areas of anywhere in South Africa or Africa and those that are going to be in the towns and cities? Because these people are going to meet one way or the other in institutions of higher learning or engagements and so forth, you know. And these are arguments and conversations that for me, I would really like for us to bring about, you know, because one speaker was even bringing that yeah, you don't even know how to use a whiteboard, Mara, but children know how to use a whiteboard, you know. And if you look at, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the videos of children in Singapore, in China, you know, and doing all these different skills. Because right now we are also stuck with the reality in Africa. But I'll speak about South African context, how academically driven the education system is, you know. And again, it has its roots in the education system that was prescribed to us through colonization, you know. And now you look at education systems that we need. We don't need to, we don't, I'm not, and don't dispute me. I believe that education is important, going to university, but there are learners who are more for the vocational route, right? And for me, it's let's focus on infusing those where a child doesn't need to feel like I'm not capable just because they're not able to pass matric. And that's why now in South Africa, we've moved back to saying, let's have a GEC. GEC is basically a grade 9 certificate, which in the Bantu education system was there, right? But it acknowledges bringing this thing of let's have an academic route, let's have a vocational route. And the most critical for me is we need children to leave school with a skill, ladies. We need to, like Mraro, right now, when you left matric, what could you do? Bali, what could you do with your hands? You know, what could you do? We need children to leave school and they say, okay, cool, I can plant. I did agriculture. I can sew. You know, they had what home economics, I think, back then. But what we don't have right now, our children are not, they are not being produced and future ready. Not, I don't even want to say future ready. They are not present ready for the market, you know. So yeah, I'm sorry to babble, but that's just a thought that such books, when I read, they make me realize that our colonizers were very intentional about what they are doing. And if you read also about apartheid, guys, apartheid was very deliberate about what they were doing for white people. Why are we not deliberate for black people? Why are we not deliberate in saying this works, this doesn't work, you know? What are we doing? Like I really I struggle to really see the intentionality of empowering Black people. And I don't think as a nation, as a continent, and today's Africa Day, I don't feel like we are furious enough, we are fighting enough to say, guys, how do we change? And the thing is, yes, Muraro and I can be doing change in our little corners, but that's why I spoke about policies, because we need a government that functions for us as a people. I rest my case. Thank you, Muraro.
But
Thank you.
just to say, Renaya, some of the things you must check what our own government has done after '94. So some of the things are have been deliberate. Because when we're at school, we used to have the academic side, and for those who needed a skill or who were not academically inclined, I remember in Tembisa, we had a technical school in primary, so there were kids who will go to the technical school to do technical work, and most of them are self-employed to this day. They never went to any formal schooling after primary. So some of the things were done deliberately by our own people to take us back, because in some way the previous government had those things in place for kids who, as you said, we did needlework, we were sewing in primary, we were doing gardening in primary. But after 94, most of those things disappeared. So some of it's just to make sure that a Black person stays as a slave or an employee. It's up to us to daily find ways to make sure that we don't take our kids and grandkids down that drain. And then the slide you were talking about, somebody actually did look into it to say countries like Germany, they withdrew their kids because they were like, our kids grow up learning in German. English is not their first language. They realized as the study was done to say, our kids are going to perform very badly in this study because it's English geared. And the kids that were taken from South Africa, most of them were from rural or semi-urban places who were not English inclined, who were going to schools that were teaching in African languages. So there was the barrier was already there, the language barrier. And the study, or those who then were writing about the study, didn't focus on that to say, yes, there is a comprehension problem, but the study itself was conducted in a language that most of the kids were not exposed to, which was a problem on itself. But yes, let me stop here.
Thank you very much, ladies. Let me come back to something that I wanted to touch on when we were still starting with the discussion about how at times we do not respond or do not use our voices when we're given the platform to do that. And this is something that I also note when I'm having financial literacy sessions where I will ask something so basic, but will not get a response until someone will then raise their hand, respond, and then I continue to question the people that did not raise their hands, or I ask them, who else was thinking what this person just responded? And then they raise their hand. And I'm bringing that scenario because at times we have something that we want to contribute, but we feel like either it's not good enough or someone will say it better. But even the person that ends up taking the space then says exactly what you wanted to say. And as women, I also want to appreciate the space that we have created and also appreciate the men that have joined us. Once I finish here, before somebody comes in, I will hand over to you, Kumalo, to introduce yourself and also share about the work that you're doing and also your book club and the things that you're doing to contribute to Africa. Because sometimes when we are in these spaces, there's a lot that comes into our minds. Sometimes you are the one that is shutting yourself up when you are supposed to be speaking, but without realizing that even the person that's sitting next to you is going through the same thing because of the system that we find ourselves in. So when you hear that voice, recognize it, speak about it, the challenges that we face or the things that stop us or us stopping ourselves, let's find a voice to be able to express it so that we can also speak for the next person who is next to us, and then we can also liberate one another. And if we don't do that, we will always stay slaves. And the second thing, at times we do not think these things affect us. I was so excited now when everyone had an opinion about the VAT, the budget, this, that. And I'm just thinking, oh my word, now we can talk, but we don't even do our own personal budgets. VAT has always been there. We never thought it affected us, but now that it's put on the table, everyone is like, yeah, the poor people, the poor. There's a lot of things that are affecting us every single day. And when you don't talk about it, then the next person will not talk. I think, yes, this is a safe space for us to use our voices, but also to practice on one another. When we say unmute, you jump in, you share, and then when you're done, the next person who will be sharing, we're now. Yeah, We are back
Okay.
now. We're once disconnected. And sometimes you will be there
How many
talking.
are we here? Are we two?
It's two
Or
of
what?
us now. They'll come
Yeah,
back.
I saw
Those
it.
that can. But I was just saying that sometimes you'll be using your voice, and those that are in power will cut you out, eh? But you must come back and continue using your voice. Yeah. When
Mm.
you keep on saying it was a heavy, did you take it out of the phone and carry it? Explain it.
I did something that I never did before,
Mm,
and to read it from a soft copy because I think I'll get a hard copy maybe the end of June. But I started, I was I wanted to highlight on my notes. It was just too much to take. The book is very, even if someone says, I hear people saying that they just think most of the things I hear say, but there's just things there that really mess you up and like you think back and think, if these things did not happen this way, what could have happened to us? You know? So there's just a lot of injustice and a lot of cruelty for me. And I'm thinking, looking beyond that, I'm thinking maybe these people saw that if they don't stop us, then we're going to finish them. They're not going to be able to have a stand in the world because we were just too powerful for them. Even not just looking by us, but feeling that we are something else. So I read. I did not finish, but I read most parts of the book, and it, it, it was a different experience for me. I don't like those topics because I feel like knowing and not doing much for me, it's more like not knowing at all. But obviously, it's different because you can do better. You can think better. You can think with knowledge or think with information. Yeah, so I was so touched by that book. I even actually went out to research on this guy who wrote and checked other books that he has written, find out that he died, and I was like, okay. And I followed a lot on what he used to say and how he used to write. Yeah,
mm.
so oh man, yeah, it was sad.
Yeah, indeed. Um, I forgot what I wanted to say now. When you say you went to research and then you found out that he's dead, they do say when they're still introducing the book in the introduction, you see, Bamulaile because of what he was doing. But I think just touching on that, you're raising something very important because of the work that he was doing, he knew that his life was at risk. And at times,
Mm,
even the work that we are doing um, puts our lives at risk. And we need to understand, Uti, what is the cost that we're willing to pay for this? And another
mm,
thing, when we're comparing to the rest of Africa, South Africa is so chilled, shame. We are so comfortable. There is no one abducting people and yo, like this
yeah,
African
yeah. You know
rising
what?
that I was speaking about, you're
Mm,
part of that community and someone will be saying this, so this person and this person have been arrested, the police are doing this to them in the borders of Tanzania, there's this person who's, and you're just saying this is happening every single day to people that I was once in a conference room with. Those people fight. Those people are not scared of prison because that's where their lives are. And that's what
mm,
they're fighting with. And when they go and march out there, now out to a march, I'll tell you, I don't belong to the streets. I'd rather have a discussion and talk about what the issues are and then we find solutions for them. But I'm not placarding and going out there. But there are situations that call exactly for that. And some of us are 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. But when we are here, we do the things that take us backward instead of saying, now that we come from that history, what are we doing to go forward? And that's why I
mm,
was like, when we even come to this session, I want us to think about where we are, taking into account the history that we read about, and saying, where are we going? And make sure that we chart the path, we become deliberate about our actions, and we also communicate about the work that we're doing, because it might look so simple, but you might be the only one who's trying to organize and have these kids read in these different provinces, traveling, using your own expenses. How do we then communicate that so that the impact can be seen, felt, and your initiatives get supported? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, yeah. Remember, we were talking about looking at what we're going to read next, ne? And then I saw like someone put, I don't know who it was, like the name, and that it's hard to forget. Malibu said she got a e-book or something. So I went just before May. I think it was sometime later in April. I went to look for this guy because, honestly speaking, I've never heard of this guy before. So I went to check what kind of a person he is, because I was thinking, with this magnitude of how I see the book and what it talks about, maybe it would be nice if we link him up and set up a date whereby we have our discussion here, and then we set up a date with him to speak to him. That's when I realized the things that were led to the death and how he passed away and stuff like that. So reading in the book, it was like, okay, but I had not started. So I wished it was possible for us to get his view, to get his understanding on when he was writing, and then the sources. I'm sure there's things that he could not put there, because I could see that it was really crucial information. So, and I was very sad starting to read the book that he's no longer there. Yeah. So I don't know. Our other issue as people, not necessarily as women, it's the power that we don't see in collaborating our skills, collaborating our characters, collaborating our personalities, as different as we are, and coming out with something worth working for, or a legacy for our children. I don't know. People have issues with trust, and I understand that maybe they've been hurt before, but in business, in work, in teams, that's why they say something's a team. In cooperatives, it's a company of people. People are company, and they make up a co-op. People don't understand, and I think the lack of information and the lack of what goes into it makes it easy for them to just say, I know I can do this. You don't even want to learn because you're thinking already you have failed. That's one thing that the system has put in us, in a way that we think that nothing can come out of us that is worth doing, that we didn't see from anybody else, that we think and feel that is right. Get me? Yeah, ne?
People have been hurt and they're still going to get hurt again. But like I always say, even on Jolo, they hurt you and then they're still going to hurt you again. But Jolani again, I say
I
Jolan.
was waiting
So
for Jolo back.
even with this
Because I
work,
know that is the favorite subject.
empower, do the work, give of yourself. They're going to hurt you, but continue. Kumalo, over to you. Introduce yourself and welcome to our session.
Thank you very much. Just spoke something about Mujol. My name is Kumalo Pise, so I'm originating in Wolmaranstad, northwest in South Africa. It's first time for me to be in this platform. I really appreciate very much. I was taking notes, points the time we spoke. Actually, I never read the book. I just read it recently now, and I really appreciate very much. I really appreciate, and also this platform. I really appreciate, and I also see it seems like it's really lazy inside, but I'm normally used to be around it and hear their sides, and what you've been speaking is true indeed. And also to touch about my work here. Surely I'm a student from Musela College, and also we opened a book club whereby we take back our we have 2 years opening this club, and we want to familiarize youth, mostly youth, to our focus in youth, to be familiar and literacy as all. And our games
I don't know if it's just me, but it was breaking. Could you hear
Especially
him?
at the end. At the end, yeah. At the end, the last 2 sentences were breaking, but the rest of the things we've heard him.
Okay.
Mm.
Anyone else that has something to share?
Are people back here? I can't even see. What's happening?
No, they are here.
Okay. Something's not right with my stuff. I can't see stuff like I was seeing before. Okay. If they are here, good. 3 minutes to go. We said we are really doing it.
also.
Yeah. Here is Mr. Kumalo here. I think he got reconnected back to the stage.
Yes, thank you very much. So I was taking you back to our book club. We want to empower young people based on their literacy. I heard everyone was speaking about this thing on a point of education system. So it's good for us to highlight this thing of education system that we have in our country. Surely it doesn't benefit or build us with anything, truly speaking. And by us coming with this idea of book club, it was to come with alternative entertainment whereby you can move around, like for
Hayibo, wahamba mas tshela nge-entertainment.
I think it's what you call it? I think it's a network from his side.
Oh.
Yeah, you can hear it. He comes, and the next thing is down, and the next thing is up, and then the next thing is just recorded. Yeah, so I think it's network.
Oh, because I last said Maktoti entertainment, and I'm like, okay. Let's try this again, Kumalo. You were talking about bringing entertainment to it.
in short, like, just to close, not to go too much. I was speaking about our idea to bring a book club in our area is just to bring an alternative entertainment whereby we involve books in our entertainment. In short, for example, we know the aim of book clubs is to bring literacy in people. So we need culture of reading, and I want to put this on the group to build a consciousness in young women. Because if we build consciousness in young women,
If you can't read signs, ne? Hi. That was like the third sign. You see red flags 3 times as well, even Gumjol. So let's all agree that the network is an issue at this point, but we'd like to appreciate and also say thank you, Kumalo, for joining us on today's session and also highlighting or sharing about the work that you're doing in the Northwest province. I don't know how to read the name as yet. It's a wall something. Yeah, but it will come to my tongue one day. But yeah, just keep doing the work that you're doing because when it comes to young people, we need to make sure that we do something that will impact their lives. And also, as we continue with this journey, it's important that we also ensure that we continue to empower ourselves as well. Because sometimes when we want to do something, we always think about the next people without prioritizing ourselves as well. So even when you do this work, please make sure that you're also empowering yourself in the process. Walma Randstad. Yeah, I think that's how we say it. But this just shows that wherever you are, you can start an initiative, we can connect. And also when you're doing your work, please do share when there is sessions, if there is support or stakeholders that we can collaborate and share that information with, so that you can make the most of the existing relationships that we've built throughout the years. You did indicate that you've got other members, so maybe in the next session, also invite them to join in and come have conversations with us. With us, we read a book a month, and then we review on the last Sunday of the month. And where's Busisiwe? Busisiwe, over to you. Tell us about the next book that we are reading.
Thank you, Presscom. The next book is called I Am Me, APK's Life. It's a mini memoir. That's what I call it, because it looks at an aspect of my life growing up as a pastor's kid, the repression, the expectations, the rejection, the poverty, the hunger, and how we also, as a family, built our own entertainment, social life due to rejection, because we are now a pastor's kid. The book is available on Amazon as an ebook, or you can get it from me as an ebook or a flip book. It's 60 Rand ebook and 120 flip book, because I didn't really want to sell it as such, but for my time, I guess I need to get something. So that's why the prices are that low. Thank you so much.
You say ebook and flip book. What's the difference, Lab? Or is it the same thing?
It's also Sia. I don't think she heard you. I think is she still here?
Yeah, she's here. But Marty, ebook, flip book. Hey, what's confused? I'm doing.
I think in flip book and flip book because of hard copy and soft copy.
No, what we can do is we can ask her to put on the group so that everybody, even those who are not part of this, can get it. Because I agree, most of the people are not here. So go grouping, then we can understand and see what she's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. On my side, nothing else. Just to say thank. Oh, I sent the woman.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize.
Guys, the woman from Raga, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking and I'm wondering why. Okay, but ebook, it comes as a PDF. You get it on Amazon Kindle, or you can get it from me. And then the flip book, it's like a book, but online. You get a link and then you just flip it like a book. You know, you read it like you're reading a book, but online.
Oh, that sound when you're flipping a page.
Yes, yes.
I experienced that last year's December book with.
Yes, you remember that one book that we bought as a flip book. It was not like a.
Oh, the
Yes,
lady from
yeah.
Zim, because we couldn't get
Yes.
hard copy. Okay.
Yes, but for this one, because the intention was not to print it at all, I've got it on Amazon as an ebook, or you can get it from me as a PDF, or you can get a flip book where you get a link and then you just flip it as a book, but online.
Okay, not a problem. Ndibuo, please unmute and greet us. Lokobela.
Yeah, barely 2 hours in Penang.
What 100 days? Colonization was like 100 days. Guys, sorry guys. I just got excited, but I can see she's not unmuting. The women from Muraga village are here, guys. This is like
Oh, that's nice.
this is like a life-changing
Hi,
moment.
hi, ladies from Muraga. One day is one day.
One day is one day.
We're coming. We're coming to Muraga. You must
Yes,
prepare
yes.
some stuff for us. Activities.
Yeah, they must come online and see you so that when you go to Muraga, they see you in person. The photo that I was sharing on the group with them wearing traditional clothes, now they are here.
I saw that they were beautiful, eh?
We know we see everything about them every time, so we want to see these people.
Yeah, nizogqoka lokho manifika kwaMraga. Guys, have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Siyabonga. See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.